In general, I do generative concrete poetry. I don't write the poems, I write programs that create poems. So what's more important is to get a background. I've met so many people that even complete MFA programs in creative writing that have no experience with concrete poetry. So we'll start with this. This is Bob Rax's poem Balloon. It's from a book, it's a children's book called Wet Cement, right? And this is what most people think of when you hear concrete poetry. You think about these balloon-shaped images, you think about lollipop-shaped trees that say the word tree. And that's what most people, if they even know what concrete poetry is, will envision. It's a children's book, though Bob Rax is, I think, better than most. That's why I included him, because of the way the L and the O made its own balloon. Right? So we're not talking about this, we're talking about more this sort of not children's book sense of concrete poetry. Oops. And this is what most people get exposed to. This is Mary Ellen Solt, the only American who's considered a concrete poet in this time period. That's not true. I gave a talk on different kind of concrete poetry that wasn't called concrete poetry, but that's a whole another 90 minutes. So Mary Ellen Solt's Moonshot Sonnet, which is the alignment grids from NASA moonshots. Well, they weren't moonshots then because it was 64. But these are NASA screen elements, and she's put them together like this, and it gives this illusion of something coming, something going, moving in and moving out. So I call all this stuff concrete poetry because I like that it's it's a hard term, it's physical, it feels something, but it's generally called visual poetry these days, since the 1970s. We'll get into that why. So Ferrer Goulart is Brazilian, and Verde, you probably know means green, and erva means grass. So you look at this poem, there's a sort of separation of green from grass, like the green should be the yard in some sense, and erva is the sidewalk. It's a disconnection. And that's what poetry of this era talks about. It's all lined out. It's very heavily designed. It's all crisp and elegant and static. It does have something in common, though, with all other visual poems. Like I said, in the 70s, this is where we really start getting weird. This is from Rosemary Waldrop's chapbook, Camp Printing. There are 24 in this series. This is 2 of them. And it is a James Camp poem, repeated, cut up in various ways. These are 2 different poems. And you can see in these poems that they're taking advantage of newer technologies, in printing at least. And you could still make out words, you can still see these letters like, I'm supposed to read this in some way. I can see, take my image, and this one on the left. But it's even more cut up on the right and repeated, and it looks like a tire track almost in the mud. But if you really investigate it, you can force yourself to see letters in some kind of language. Right? So, is it important to read these words? This is where visual poetry really takes off. Do I need to read these words? You don't need to read the words. You need to see that it is something to be read. When you read something, you take it in differently than if you just look at something. Right? That is why you look at this and you go, well, how come this isn't art? Why is nobody calling this art? Why are they calling this concrete poetry? And there's a few reasons. Like I said, this is intended to be read as opposed to look at. But more importantly, if you are somebody who calls your work concrete poetry, y'all are poets in here, you know how relatively hard it is to get anybody to look at concrete poetry, and poetry in general. And if you want to call yourself something like concrete poetry, a niche part of something that's already hard enough to get people to look at, well then, you go and you make yourself even harder to get hold of. So like if you come across like a poem in like say Olmec, right? You can't read it, but you know it's something there. You know that it's communicating something. You know you're supposed to take it in one way or another. But the problem is, if it were in Olmec, you wouldn't have any context, you don't have any history, and that's sort of the point. If you have a poem, such as this one, Born, Oakland, Mississippi, it starts, poems are linear. When you read, it is linear. It starts up there at point A, and you go, and you come down, you read across and across and down, all the way to point B. But this poem is read anywhere. You start anywhere, and you read it any direction you want to go. And there is no context. It is stripped of the context. You can't look at it and go, oh, words. I know what words are. I can get into this. But if somebody hands you that one over there and says, this is a poem, you sure about that? Because they have communicated in some way that has stripped all of the context out for the reader. So there is usually a connection between the two. This one is typographical elements from Russian futurists who are really into this sort of thing, playing around. They like to